This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today is the continuation of our weekly ACC training. This week, we're going to be focusing on Link2quotes, and I've done, quite a few webinars in the past on Link2quotes, but this one is really going to be focused from the reseller perspective. Because I'm going to not only show you how to sell it, but also how to use it in Selling Act. Okay, and that's kind of going to be the slant that that we take today. Okay, so the first thing, let me just get this up here. So, like many of you, I started quoting with QuoteWorks a number of years ago, and I have nothing bad to say about QuoteWorks. QuoteWorks was instrumental in me growing my business. The trouble was, it was not optimized for ACT. Despite what they may tell you, ACT is not a priority integration for them. And certainly when ACT Premium Cloud came around, it was much less so. So certain inefficiencies became apparent. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of switch this over here. Okay, so first of all, with QuoteWorks, you can only update or edit one quote at a time. Okay. Remote users required a VPN and a thick client to sync, which caused deployment headaches for ACCs and IT companies. I am sure anyone that's set it up is kind of rolling their eyes in recognition. And unless you were a corporate subscriber, you could not sync or not easily sync products, templates, and other updates without copying access files across the network. Okay. While longtime users were absolute diehards for QuoteWorks, the learning curve for new users was long and challenging and often required training. I know this. I had to hire salespeople, and just to get them the speed to production, I found with QuoteWorks was dramatically slower. And then up until a couple of years ago, there was no fully web-based access for QuoteWorks. And when it was introduced, which I believe was about 2 years ago, it was literally 2 to 3 times the cost of ACT itself. Okay, because you needed Quote Valet, you needed the corporate edition, and then I think one other piece. So by the time you were done, it added up to like $73. And when you're talking about it as an add-on for a $30 product, that becomes a hard sell. Okay. Anyway, these issues made QuoteWorks hard to sell, support, deploy, use, and even recommend. Um, and even more so when you considered, and let's remember who we all are, that none of our QuoteWorks sales counted towards our new NRR requirements. Okay. Link2quotes, on the other hand, updates the record manager, exchange rates, expiry dates, and even the prepared buy from multiple quotes quickly and easily. And I could just show you very, very quickly, although I'm not going to really do this as a demo here. Pivot over here. Okay, I can click here, scroll down, click batch edit, and I can update the expiry date, I can update the salesperson, prepared by, and if applicable, the exchange rates. Okay, so this is something that the only thing that QuoteWorks, as I recall, allowed for batch updating were for product prices. Okay, where you can update and then force the pricing updates across a bunch of quotes, but doing changes like this was not available. Okay, the next thing with Link2quotes, there's no thick clients to install or configure. So that makes it a lot easier. The other big thing, and I can tell you this from firsthand experience, because back 3 years ago, we made the hard switch over to Link2quotes from QuoteWorks. And I basically ordered the team, after I had been the only one using it for a few years, to make that hard switch. And there were some complaints at first because they were all very, very familiar with QuoteWorks, but I said, we're switching and no one can go back. I can tell you within the first week, everyone was running at full capacity. And by the end of the first month, no one can imagine going back. Okay, so this was something that we proved in our own environment. And then the last is it used to cost 1/3 of what QuoteWorks and Quote Valet and then the corporate edition costs. Um, but now with APC and the tiers, which many of us have seen, um, a lot of these things, especially the standard tiers, are going to be free. So from a sales perspective, this is getting even easier. Okay. So just as a reminder, the base tier, and they don't have names, so I'm just going to call them bronze, silver, and gold. The base tier at bronze is going to include standard QuoteWorks for all users. Okay. Mark, don't yawn yet, or at least turn off your camera. You're busted, buddy. Okay. Any rate, so the next thing is so then the next step up is $15 per user. Okay, so that's cheaper than QuoteWorks Team was by itself. Plus, we all know that AMA, a paid tier of AMA, is included, plus all the other Linktivity. So, bottom line is this is dramatically cheaper. It's counting towards our NRR, and it's going to be easier to sell, easier to learn, and easier to support. So that's the thrust of today. Okay, just to kind of wrap that point up from a positioning standpoint. The next thing is we're going to go to linktivity.net and we're going to click on products and scroll down to quotes. Let's wait for this page to load. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down. I'm not going to read anything, but here's the comparison chart. Now I'm going to update it, but here's the thrust. These are the team exclusive features. Okay, and I'll just bring this over onto my screen here. Advanced reporting page, which I will show you. BCC notifications of accepted quotes. So what does that mean? So let's say, Mondo, I'll tell you, I'm going to turn your webcam off if you can't stop yawning, buddy. So let's say, now I'm going to pick on you. So let's say Mark Mondo was in charge of the administration, the back office administration of my business. I know, a horrifying prospect all around. But let's say he was, and I needed him to be copied on every single accepted quote so he can process the invoicing. That feature is not available on the standard tier. So you've got advanced reporting, BCC notification, payment processing. Okay. One of my premises is you're not going to get anyone more eager to pay for a quote than when they've accepted it. So present that option to them right away. Now, right now, the only option available is PayPal. The reason that we introduced PayPal um, to start is because it supported all the currencies and it supported all the markets that our customers were using. So Asia Pacific, the UK, Europe, all across North America. So it was an easy integration to build. They did have an older API, and we actually built a newer API to take advantage of their newer services at lower costs. Okay. Now, once this is deployed, then we hope to expand the payment processors that are supported. But right now, that's what's available. Link to shrink. Link to shrink, is a feature that is built in to a lot of the team products, and we've included it by default in Link to Quotes Team Edition. The shared image and document library. Guys, I know I'm covering a lot, just kind of rhyming off a bunch of things, but all these things are going to high level overview, and I'm going to show you them in a minute. So with Link to Quotes Team Edition, you get a shared image library as opposed to using image links, okay, and a document library so that every single quote you can include your brochure or terms and conditions or SOC compliance, things like that. So you can actually keep those in your little online library and attach them on the fly or insert them into quotes. That's not available in Team Edition, or Standard Edition. Multiple email templates. So what does this mean? If I'm sending out a quote, okay, I may say, this is a premium cloud quote. I'm going to select it from my drop-down list and say, let's use this one. And all of a sudden, the email body will completely pre-populate and it will have the right text. With standard, you get one and you've got to rewrite it each time. Okay. And then the last one is the review process. This is really where new sales reps okay, have like a production sandbox, if I can use that term, where they can prepare quotes, and then before they send them, they have to be approved for release. Okay, so those are the main differences. Okay, so let's get into setup, everyone's favorite subject. Okay, so let's get into settings, and I'm going to cover this enough for you guys to understand it. This isn't going to be a deep dive. It's just that you guys are going to be in charge of setting people up. So I want you guys to be reasonably familiar with this. Okay, so the prefix and the suffix, this is just for your own naming convention. Let's say that they had, an alphanumeric prefix on all their quotes or a suffix, whichever, and then you can set the minimum digits, and then this is what it will end up being. Now, we talked about QuoteWorks users. A lot of people will come from QuoteWorks or from another quoting program, and they may actually already be at a quote number sequence. So what you can do is you can put this here in their settings, and then all the quotes with Link2quotes will start at that number moving forward. Okay, so that's a good way of helping people transition. Default validity, what that means is your quote and the linked opportunity will have an expire date or estimated close date that is 30 days from the point of creation. Okay, deposit information is pretty much the same, what you'd expect it to be, take it at face value. The default layout, we're going to get into layouts in a bit, but whatever your default layout is, this is where you would select it, and then that's going to be the quote layout that you use each and every time. Doesn't mean you can't change it on a quote by quote basis, but that'll be the default. Same thing with the email content. The email content, as you can see here, we've got lots of different email templates. And then when they accept it, they get sent another email. So this is one. So standard users can only use these two. Okay. And then the last option here, and let me just explain the importance of this one here. If you select this, then it will generate a PDF version of the quote that and send it out as an attachment with your quote. Now you may be thinking, what's so wrong with that? Well, the problem with that is we don't get click-through visibility on when they open up a PDF. If they click on a link, then we know instantly from what IP, when, how frequently, blah, 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 all the kind of salespeople catnip that they want, right? But when it's a PDF, it's great. It gets sent along, but we have no click-through visibility, so we're kind of flying blind. Okay, and we'll get into the importance of that later. So currencies, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on currencies because the majority of you guys are going to deal with strictly one currency. We work on both sides of the border, so we have to have multiple currencies. What I will say is that we've set the euro, we've set USD, we've set CAD. These are manually set. There's not a third-party service that this syncs with, but what you can do is you can update it here and then go back to that quote list I showed you, filter by currency, and update all of them to reflect the new exchange rate. Okay, so you can do that at once. So for me, if I said, okay, it's now 1.47 or 1.44, I would click on save, go back to my quote list, select all the quotes that are in CAD, do a quick batch edit, say foreign exchange, boom, and every single one of them are updated. Okay, that's all you need to know on that. Sales tax, duh, you guys all know this. The extra features, identify products by name or product number, generally, or item number, generally pick name. Okay, item number is a field that we generally use for accounting integration. Okay, so that people can use standard naming conventions for the products that are also using the same naming conventions in, say, QuickBooks. Okay. And it says here, the selected field will be used to identify duplicates when importing. And I'm going to show you the importing in a second. Now, here is the BCC and the CC for acceptance. As you can see, James Paulus, who is the office manager, gets copied on all quotes. And then the last point I mentioned about Team Edition exclusive features is enabling online payment. Okay. Now, the review process, very straightforward. This is where you can see here, I am the only person that can do the approving. Okay. Karthik uh, Zdena and Craig, if they create a quote, they can't send it. They can only submit it to my approval. And then when I approve it, then it can be released. Now, if you're thinking, well, why couldn't he just copy the URL and send it off? That link won't be published until it's approved. Okay, so it's pretty thorough. Personalization. Now, if I could do one thing over again, I would have moved monthly sales quotas into, some kind of administrative section so each person doesn't have to set their quota. But hopefully we can get to that later. But, basically what it says, here's the default validity again. So I'm saying, by default, let's just pick 30, but let's say that you've got another person, one person that is in charge of, say, renewals, or another person in charge of new sales. They may not have the same kind of sales cycle. So you may want to shorten or extend, based on what their job responsibilities are. Default layout and email content, when it says use the global settings, it's using the ones over from the general defaults. Okay. We all know here the default process and stage. This is what each quote will create for the opportunities that it's linked to in ACT. And then here is the monthly sales quota. As I said, this is probably a little awkward to ask, the individual sales reps to set, but really, if they decide to put it at something of their own choosing, there's really no value in it, okay? Because it doesn't have any force or effect. It's just a guide, and I'm going to show you how that works in a bit. And then hide quotes from other users. Now, we're a pretty open team, so I didn't really think about this, but I had this suggested from an ACC. So what we've done here is if you check this, then none of your quotes will be visible to the other sales rep. Your quote numbers will be reflected in the reporting, but the quotes themselves will be hidden. Okay. Now, obviously, I understand that some people may not want to share some of the lead details, but just understand that, if you hide too much, it is hard to really, for the manager to get a sense of how busy you are. Okay. Now, the follow-ups are what I call, some of the basic automation within Link2quotes. Now, to understand what you should select, always select the first, the third, and the fourth. Okay. Now, the first is issuance, which is basically when the quote is created. So when you create a quote, automatically schedule and act a follow-up call X number of days later. I've selected 5. Okay. Delivery means when you send out a quote, it will schedule another follow-up. Now, here is the problem. If you send out revisions, if you send out, multiple follow-ups, okay, using the delivery system, it will create a follow-up activity every single time. So this is really for limited use. We built it in, but we suggest most people deselect it. Acceptance follow-up. So what that means is when the quote is accepted, create a follow-up activity in ACT X number of days after the date acceptance. I put in 0. So if someone accepts a quote, I want a to-do to follow up with them right away, make sure that they know when they're going to get their order, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then this part I love, send reminder before expiry. So what this will do is if you set 1, it's going to send an email out on your behalf. And this is where you can select the template. It will send out an email on your behalf saying your quote's going to expire tomorrow, whatever it's going to say. Here's the quote link, last check. Okay. So this will go out without you having to do anything. As an ACC, guys, this is catnip for the salespeople. They will love this because, especially for the sales manager who often has to, regiment the follow-ups, this does everything for them. Okay. Now, the layouts I'm just going to cover on a basic level because this I could spend quite a bit of time on this. But let me just say the layout is what you see. Okay, we were trying to sort out the nomenclature, whether it's a layout or a template or something else. But the actual layout is what you see. So if you click on here, this is where the logo is. This is the what we're calling it. Here is the color. Obviously, we've picked orange. You guys can pick whatever. You can even change bill to or quote number, whatever. You can add in whatever information you want. Now, the only thing that I'm going to show you here, okay, when you click on this, some of this stuff is kind of cool. You'll see here a language code, okay? Now, again, I know this is probably more relevant to us than for you guys, but if you put in a language code, Sylvia sends out most of her quotes in French. If she uses a French template, it will take the translated version of all the same products and present them in French, just because the system knows it's using a French layout, so it will surface the French product descriptions. And here is something that past QuoteWorks users will remember. If you had a a product list in a different currency or a different language, then you had to have a different product database. You don't with this one. This one will support multiple currencies and multiple languages in one product database. So this is where it really becomes powerful. Now, the notes and the acceptance and the terms and conditions, all of this is great to have, okay? But you've got to click through to view it. So you've got your compliance where you're putting up all your terms, so you're covered, but it's not getting in the way of the quotes. I've seen them sometimes where it adds like 15 pages to the quote. This is just a link where it says terms and conditions, and you're covered, okay? Whatever you guys put in here is up to you, but it's nice to know that you've got that small print to cover your butt if needed, okay? And then, here is the templates. Now, you're probably saying, okay, we've got product and we've got services. So why do we make the distinction? Well, for products, the default and the product modern, basically we need to allow column space for the product description, the the quantity, the unit rate, and the extended rate. When you're in the service business, you don't typically have to do that. You typically have to have the description, sometimes the quantity, and then the extended rate. So what that allows you to do is remove some columns to allow more long form description of your service. Okay, so that's why you would choose one or the other. You may like the styling different, but once you get in there, you can customize it however you like. You'll also see down here, you can surface, you can say, hey, I don't want to show the address. I don't want to show the expiry date. I don't want to show all these different things you can select per template. Okay, and then you can change the coloring here to suit whatever the corporate branding. If you're ever doing this for a customer, just ask for RGB codes and you can match it perfectly to whatever their logos are. And then the language overwrites, you can just basically say acceptance details and you can call it something else. Okay, it's as simple as that. Okay, I said I wouldn't get into layouts that much, but I did anyway. Okay, cover page was another feature that was requested. Um, just kind of going to go in briefly. This is where you put in the image. This is where you can just put in some basic company information. It's not meant to be edited, more just put in as a prefix. And what it does is it changes the quote to be a little bit more of a proposal, okay, as opposed to just a generic, here's the number of widgets, okay? Now the emails, these are the emails, the delivery emails, the acceptance emails, the quote emails, whichever. Here's where you can build up a library of your email to go out so that you can select one very quickly on the fly to suit a particular quoting purpose and save time. Okay, now pick lists. One of the differences that I said between team and standard is that you get an image library that you can upload to your online library here of images from your computer. Okay, so I would be able in the image section, which I'll get to in a bit, I'll be able to say, hey, here's an image of Act Premium Cloud. I want to put it up there. I want to include it in my quotes or a team picture or whatever. Here, under the standard, you can only use the image URLs, okay? So if you get here, you would have to put in, here's the URL, and then if you wanted to put a link, okay, so when they clicked on it, it went to another address, then this is what you would do, Okay. But this is what standard users would have to do. I find it a little bit tiresome compared to having an image library, especially when the image library is accessible across all the team products, link to events, link to forms, um, link to quotes, link to surveys. If you add the image in one, they're available across the other. The pick list is only available in link to quotes, nowhere else. Okay. Now, videos. I wanted to show you guys this because I don't think you guys are using this that much. So what you can do in one of your quotes, so if you're not subscribed to Act yet, go down. Okay, where did Act go? There it is. Okay, now some of these are getting pretty old. Oh, here's the chaos commercial. God, I hate this one. Okay, but I'm going to use it. Okay, so I'm going to click on here and I'm going to, sorry, go in here. This is the, nope, I got to click into it. Okay, okay, I'm going to click on share. I'm going to get the link. Okay, now if I go back here and I click, I'll type this, we'll call this chaos video. Okay, now I save it. I now have that video available to surface inside my quotes. Okay, now you guys can go through all the digital uh, references you've got at your disposal, whether it's through that channel or other channels. Some of them are good. Try to avoid the learning ones just because they get pretty long. But if you can get something 30 to 60 seconds, add to it, it gives a lot of pop to your video. There is no way to store, okay, to store the here's the chaos video. It automatically alphabetizes it. There is no way to store videos in any kind of online library just for obvious reasons. Okay, we don't want to have what kind of S3 storage service available just for the purpose. Now the field map, that's someone making some noise here. Okay, so the field mapping, you've got two levels of field mapping. Okay, one is at the contact level. Okay, and this is setting a currency field, setting a discount field, and setting a tax field. So why would we need this? Because most of the field mapping that is going to be relevant is going to be at the opportunity level because it's going to be on a per transaction basis. However, there are certain things that don't change. If I'm selling Mark Mondo, I know that every single quote I'm going to submit to him is going to be in USD. So if I map this field and I select USD, every single quote that I submit is going to be automatically converted to USD because of this field mapping. Okay. Now, I know what you're thinking. I would never apply a discount to Mark Mondo. That makes no sense. But if I did in a weak moment, if he got me drunk, I could actually set in the field what default discount rate he would apply. Okay. And then taxes. Now, obviously, as a triumphant Canadian hockey country, I wouldn't have to charge him any sales taxes. But someone in Canada, I can set based on the what province they're in or whatever. So you're probably thinking that's a lot of admin to modify each and every single time. It isn't. Once you get this set up, you can go in and say, okay, do a lookup of all my customers in Canada and do a batch edit, search and replace for currency and taxes. Okay. My taxes, I would have to probably go province by province. You guys can go state by state. And then that way, when you create a quote and you're pulling in that contact information, it will know, hey, this contact traditionally uses USD, has this sales tax, has this discount, and that's why it's at the contact level. The opportunity field mapping is obviously far more based on transaction. What's the quote number? If you want to see the quote number inside of the opportunity, what's the currency? What's the deposit required? What's the shipping cost, PO? And then these last two are my favorite, okay? And what this means is quote internal link and quote external link. So if you surface this inside the layout of your opportunity and you're scrolling through Act Premium Cloud or Act, and you open up an opportunity, you'll be able to click on the links that are visible here and then either open up the customer facing quote, okay, with the external link, or open up the inside edit version inside of Link2quotes just by clicking on these links. So that's why these mappings are really, really handy. Okay. The PO number is the only thing that is post-purchase. So when you accept a quote, okay, you accept a quote and it prompts you to identify yourself. There is a field where it says put in your purchase order number. That purchase order number, if they put it in, will get written to the opportunity. So you don't even have to be inside of Link2quotes. You can be inside of Act to see what purchase order they use to complete that deal. Okay. Okay, so QuickBooks Online, I'm not really going to cover that much. Okay, so okay, now let's go over. But basically, what it does is it allows you on your accepted quotes to select from the ellipses. So if I was to go here, okay, I can click on this little ellipses, and if it was an accepted quote, then it would allow me to, there would be an option that dynamically appears if it is an accepted quote to say to convert to QuickBooks or QBO transaction. Okay, and that QBO transaction can be a sales receipt. It could be, no, it can't be a sales receipt because you would need to know the payment. It can be an estimate or an invoice. Okay. Okay, and then you could see here, here's some of the options. This is in my quote list, so I can put in copy link. Now, why would I do this or copy short link? If I'm in an email thread and someone's emailing me, hey, what was the price of that thing again? I may just want to click in here, find their quote, click on copy short URL, and then reply to that email in the same thread, okay? Rather than going in and go through the whole quote delivery process, I can just simply do it inside. Download the quote. That allows me to download all the quote document information. Schedule a follow-up. Guys, I spend more time in here than I spend in Act. So if I'm going through my pipeline, and I drill in and I find that, hey, someone hasn't really responded in a few days or a few weeks, I can schedule a follow-up right from in here. Okay, say the purpose of it, whichever, and it will automatically appear in Act that second. Okay, so again, guys, we all know what we sell. We know that Act isn't the sexiest program out there. Doesn't have the most modern feel yet, but Link2quotes does. And I'm take my word for it. I don't great family pictures popping up. Okay, close. Um, I have saved large accounts where a Salesforce rep has come in to take over as the sales manager, had no use for Act. I spent an hour showing them this, and they renewed 100% of their seats. Okay, and added this. So don't underestimate, when you're doing a tour of this for this customer, you're really showing them the best leg you can, okay, in terms of the modern UI, the modern capabilities, the automation, everything. So, getting people to kind of stay in here is not a bad thing. So that's why we wanted to surface different functions like scheduling follow-ups. Now, when you accept a quote, obviously you're accepting it by proxy. Disable a quote means that that's going to go into your one loss record. Okay. When I'm disabling a quote, I want that counted on my score. If I'm deleting a quote, let's say I did a demo for Mark Mondo, and you're going to regret yawning as much as you did, Mark. So let's say that I did a quote and it's just a demo, and it's created the opportunity, it's created the quote. I never tried to sell. It was just for demo purposes. I'm going to use the delete function so it doesn't come up on any of my reporting. It's going to delete it and wipe it out as if it never existed. Okay. Okay. So let's go into. Okay. So here you'll also know. Again, this is going to get your customers in here much more than the opportunity pipelines, because take a look. You've got all your quantity of quotes already pre-filtered. You've got the here's the total value. It's even breaking it down by currency, which is more relevant to me than maybe for you guys. Weighted total, minimum value, maximum value, average value. Now, this is great, and you can get a lot of this information on the KPIs in the opportunity pipeline. But take a look at what you can do. Now, here's the filter. The filters are pretty self-explanatory. All of these settings are sticky, right? So if I select myself and I select I only want to see open expired and nothing else, every time I log in, I'm going to see that same filter. Okay. Now, I don't want to see on my quote list, say Victor's or Sylvia's, because this is where I manage my pipeline. If I want to see everyone's, I'm going to go to the activity dashboard. However, as I'm their manager, I may want to select and filter down by their quotes on that basis, but generally not. Now, here's where I'm going to show you some cool features that are available. I'm just going to clear the filters. Okay. So now I'm going to see Victor's and everyone else's. I can see accepted ones. And by the way, um, you see convert to QuickBooks transaction. This deal was literally accepted while I was talking to you. Okay. So quick to convert the QuickBooks transaction. Now, with what I can do right now, let's say that because we all know that we follow up on the hot leads, but we don't always know when people are not responding to quotes, right? Like we send out quotes and it's like, hey, I'm dealing with 50 quotes. I don't know who's looked at it, who hasn't. It's a little tedious to kind of go through the long dashboard, especially with everyone else's. How can I determine who's looked at my quote and who hasn't? Okay, well, I can click on here, the filters, and I can say activity level, not having selected activity type, and I can literally say um, not having quote viewed, quote accepted, or and let's just say that, okay? In the period of time, I'm going to say, um, let's say the past 30 days, okay? Now, and I may want to say, of course, open, because I'm not going to care about closed quotes, and I click on here. Now, what this has done is this has immediately created a list, a lookup. Okay, now it's including everyone's, so that's less useful. But if I filtered by me, I can then see a lookup of every single person who has not looked at my quote, say, in 30 days. Now, why is this useful? Well, I'm going to just do one more filter. I'm going to say myself. Okay, so now I've got a short list of all the people who have not looked at my quote. Okay, why is that useful? I can select all of them, send quotes, and I can create a merge mail reminder to all of my people here. And I'm going to just say, okay, first quote follow up. And here's just a standard link. It's going to merge in the quote link. It's going to merge in the billing salutation. Okay. It's going to merge in my signature, and then I can send it out. Okay. Try doing that with QuoteWorks, okay, where you can basically turn a lookup, a filter of all of the open quotes meeting a certain criterion. And in this case, it was no open quotes or it hadn't been opened in the last 30 days, and then sending them out a reminder. Boom. Okay. Suddenly you've touched every single one of them. You don't know which one is going to respond. Okay. Now, while I've got this screen up, here is a feature that I call, be a loser like me kind of feature. So if you're like me and make a lot of quotes early on, early in the morning on weekends, well, you don't want to send out a quote to someone on a Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. Okay. So what you can do is you can create a whole bunch of quotes and then send them out scheduled delivery. Send them out on Monday morning so people don't know that you're a big loser like me. Okay. Because I actually do this. I'll prepare at like 5 or 6 in the morning a bunch of my quotes, and then I'll queue them up to go out, at a reasonable hour. Okay. If I sent them out at 6 a.m., as I said, people would know I'm a loser. Okay. So now I'm going to cancel that. Okay. So we've covered, um, let's see, we picked this documents. Okay. So let's go across the top here, and we see the activity dashboard. Okay, here's the quote that I had accepted 37 minutes ago. And so you can see these are in green. You can see that this one was viewed, this one was viewed. If you click on any one of them, okay, you can see that I created this yesterday. I sent it yesterday. Okay, I sent a follow-up because this email she told me was bad. And then I could see she viewed it, viewed it, viewed it. This was trending fast towards the close, which it did. Okay. Now, reports. Again, this is a team edition exclusive. Okay. So you can see so far this month, we've got 73,000 in sales. I'm in the lead. Victor's second, followed by Sylvia, Shannon, and actually looks like Sylvia or Shannon and Craig are pretty much tied. Okay. Now look at the stats that you've got available here. You see this dark green versus light green. This is showing profit margin. So you're seeing margin for each deal out of the 29,000. Okay. On this, 22,000 is margin. That's pretty good. Okay. You can see the minimum deal, maximum deal, and then the average. All of these stats, including open quotes, quotes by status, expired quotes by salesperson, lost deals. Now, you've also got inactive. Excuse me, I can expand this and take a look at the daily deals. But if I close it, if I collapse it, that becomes sticky. By the way, I can also move this up and that will, the order sequence will become sticky as well. Okay. Now, what I can also do, this part I really love. Okay, so here we are, 21st of February. If I want to do a comparison, see how we're doing, and I want to say previous month, nope, I want to select same month last year because that's really the relevant criterion, right? How does this February compare to last February? And I can see here, Shannon's down quite a bit. She had a very strong February, but still some time to go. Okay, I'm up. Sylvia's down, Craig is up, and Victor is down. Okay, we still have a month or a week to go, but this is where you can really show your customers some built-in quoting KPIs and reporting that really isn't going to exist anywhere else. Okay, and then you can go into profit margin. This gives a little bit more of a product breakdown. Okay, but that I wanted to show you. The outbox, this is where all my queued emails go. The templates, these are saved quotes that I can use over and over again, and I'll show you that in a minute. Products. Now, you guys are wondering, you know, how am I going to get started if I've got to input all of these products and get going? Well, you remember the email I sent out to you yesterday. So let me switch over to a different workspace, and I'll say Ken's workspace. Oop, that one doesn't have a. I'll go to keystroke demo. Okay, go to. Let's go to. Ken's workspace. Nope. I thought I had one here. Start trial. Okay, let me just do this. Okay, so I'm going to go products. Now, you remember that email I sent you out yesterday? That email contained a link to a product spreadsheet. Let me show you how easy that works. I'm going to click on products. I'm going to click on import from file, choose file. Okay, I've selected here, products demo, import. No configuration. Boom. Look at all the products you got. Ready to go. It's possible we left in some of our own products to help you guys sell our products. I am a capitalist after all, but all of the ACT products that we sell, okay, you guys can now, you've got access to the exact same things. So marketing automation, everything. Now, why is that useful? Let's take marketing automation advanced subscription. Take a look at all the information you've got, okay? You've got the 10,000 sends. Obviously, you don't have product image because we would use ours, but you've got the price, okay, the cost, so on and so forth. All of that already built in. You've even got option groups, which I'll cover in a bit. You've got here software Sage. You can change any of this. You can do batch edits, but this gets you started. Here's where the translation is, where you can add additional languages. As I told you before, we're not going to get into this, okay, because right now the only difference is between Canadian English and American English. So this is how you can get started instantly. So if you guys were kind of on the fence about, starting using Link2quotes because of the amount of setup, this is one hurdle that we just covered for you. Okay. So now let me go back. Okay. So what you can see here, if we're going to AMA here, as going to the advanced, from ours, we've got image links, products links, but I'm not going to send you stuff that has, hyperlinks back to my website. You'll think that this is all just some kind of scam. So we've removed all of these things so that you guys are able to start using it right away. Okay. But you could set all your default sales taxes, so on and so forth. So now let's get into, oh, by the way, remember I talked to you about images? This is where you can upload your image library. Just click on upload. Okay. If I was to grab the beavers celebrating in the streets with Canadian jerseys, I can add that to my library, and that will be available across all the team products, not just Link2quotes. Okay. And then here's where it tracks out of 100 megs your total space available. Okay. Now take a look at all this. We've got quite a few images, right? Probably more than most people are going to use. But because of the compression that we built in during the upload process, barely 25% is being used of our available space. Okay. And then the document section could be things that you include like SOC 2 and SOC 3 compliance paperwork, as you've seen here. It can be company brochures. It could be support plan details. It could be product brochures, anything. This is like a little library that you can insert inside of a quote or insert, during the delivery where you can attach it. Okay. Now, what's the difference? If you insert it inside a quote, an actual attachment inside the quote, okay, then when they click on it, you're going to get that feedback. You're going to get a feedback report to your activity dashboard that someone has opened up an attachment inside of the quote. If it's an attachment with the email, then as I said before, you're not going to get the links or the feedback. Okay, so let's get back. I want to spend the last 10, 15 minutes covering the stuff that I think you guys are going to need to know the most of. Okay, I'm going to create a new quote. Now, I'm going to say Mark Mondo quote. Now I can say right here, I'm going to use a template. Okay. And I'll say Mark Mondo APC quote. I can do that. Now, just because I've typed in his name doesn't mean anything yet. So all I've done is I've said new quote and I've typed in what I'm going to call it, which will also be the name of the opportunity. And I'm going to say, hey, use this from one of my my templates. And all a template is a previous quote that you've chose to, click on the little ellipses or more actions and say save as a template. So if I'm doing the same kind of quote over and over again, I probably don't want to compile all the different products and all the different text and all the different digital assets over and over again, because I can click on here. Now you see here it says CAD. Okay. I'm going to type in Mark Mondo. See how it automatically switches to USD? Okay. Look at that. No way. Remove that discount lickety split. Okay, so now I'm going to click on the line items. So here's all of the line items that I've got. So I'm just going to save this.
Ken, quick question for you.
Yeah, Gary.
When you had it automatic, when you pulled up Mark Mondo
Mm-hmm.
and you selected him and it changed it to USD,
Yep.
is that pulling from a field that you have in ACT where you were doing um,
The field, remember the field mapping?
field
That
mapping?
was,
Is that how that
yeah. So
works?
what I would have done is I would have done a lookup of all my contacts in the United States, and I would have done a batch edit to update that field to be USD. Okay, and that way, anytime I plugged in one of my American contacts, it would automatically switch them over. That's why it's at the contact level and not at the transaction level. Okay,
Perfect.
yeah, so that saves a lot of time. For those that aren't aware, Gary's one of a Canadian reseller like us, so he's dealing with the same issue, having to deal with different currencies. Okay, now if I want to see what this looks like, this is what it's got: image going across the top. It's populated all the information about Mark. It's all the information about the quote, currency, my handsome picture, product details, including the links here. Okay, images. Okay, it's got our orange care. And then here we've added in the videos. Okay, now this is a subheader. Okay, which I'll show you in a minute. But take a look at this. Right inside, use the ones from YouTube, use ones that you create yourself, whichever, but you can literally not just, you can turn your quote into something that has a built-in soft sell component. Normally it's just, priceless. Here it can actually, if you load it up with the digital assets, you can really help the quote sell itself. Okay. So now I go back here. Now let's cover the things that are relevant to you guys. We are all quoting our renewal customers two things: their premium existing account and the APC that we want them to buy. So I'm just going to remove both these things here. And I'm going to add those two products. I'm going to type in premium. Okay, premium annual subscription. And then I'm going to click on here below it. And I'm going to type in APC. Okay. And I'm going to just type in the desktop sync. Okay. So now I'm just going to grab the little handles, bring them up here, put them together. Now, when I'm quoting them, it has to come across as an either or. I don't want them to have the option to buy both, right? Or have the price of both appear in the total, because they're going to think I'm ripping them off. So here's what I do. I select this, I scroll down, and I say option group, and I'm just going to put in ACT. Okay? And then I go to the next one, and I do the same thing. The second I do that, they become mutually exclusive. Okay? Watch what I mean. So save this. I've got lousy internet, so I'm going to drink some coffee here. Okay, so I'm going to click on preview. And now I can say, hey, Mr. Customer, I know your renewal's coming up, but I've got a great offer for you. For just $1 more per month, you can have your program hosted. You can have all the latest features. Which would you like to go with? They can select it inside the quote themselves. Okay, and boom, accept it, and you've got a new order that suddenly allows you to keep getting your commissions. Okay, so that's something that is relevant to us, that is, more relevant to us than it is to other people, but if, it can be generalized, obviously, into other industries. But this is something that we use every single day, multiple times a day. Okay, now the other thing is, and this is a big issue for me, is where you get new prospects and they all want to pretend that they're big swashbucklers. They say, oh, yes, I want, 20. Give me your best price for 20. So I'll put in 20 and I'll put in 20. okay? But whenever I deal with those customers, I say make quantity editable. And then I say make quantity editable, okay? Now, there's two reasons I do this. When I go to preview, they can turn around and they can modify in the quote the quantity themselves. So that eliminates a lot of the back and forth. Everyone on this call has quoted people and it's like, oh, I've talked to such and such and now I need 4 and not 5, or can you send me the quote again, but deselect this or increase the quantity of that, or whatever. Okay, this is a huge time saver because they can manage the quote on a pre-sale level largely by themselves without going back and forth with you and creating 15 different iterations of the quote. But here's something else. So let me show you something. If I go in here and I'm going to add designer. Okay, see designer here. I'm going to select make quantity editable. Now, do you see how I've set up all these quantity pricing tiers? Okay, all I do is I just click on here and I set what's the trigger, what's the discount, or I can set the discount here and it will calculate the rate, or I can set the rate and it will calculate what the numeric value is. Okay, whichever. So if I say, in this case, 25 for 25, it will calculate what that new price is. Why is that relevant? Because I'm now going to click on save. Now, this is one that my salespeople love because it gets rid of all the turkeys. Okay, so I go here, click on save. So remember I told you about the guys that are always saying, hey, I've got big bucks, and so what do we say? You want 20? No problem. See, 119 automatically becomes 95, 96. So it's built right in. Now, that same turkey is going to come back to you as he's ready to sell or ready to buy and say, hey, you know what? Really appreciate the great price, but I just need 3 right now. Okay. But then, if we love it, we're going to increase to 500, right? And suddenly you're under pressure to keep the quantity pricing, which most sales people aren't authorized to offer. By building the tier in right there, you can just go back to them and say, oh, you can change the quantity right inside the quote yourself. Go ahead. They reduce it. They see the price change right in front of them. And it's less about you being their best friend, not being their best friend anymore, and more about the built-in quantity discount. So it eliminates a lot of the typical tension around salespeople when you're dealing with these swashbucklers that try to, have more swagger than wallet. Okay. So that's where I really, really love that feature, and we all deal with it. Okay. Now, the other thing that we deal with are things like custom tables, things like enhanced support, that the quantity of which moves in lockstep with the core product. What do I mean by that? Well, if I'm selling 5 Act Premium Cloud and I add custom tables to it, okay, and I add enhanced support, someone can't have 5 Act Premium clouds and different quantities of enhanced support or custom tables. They've got to move up and down in lockstep with it. So the only way you can do that is create a bundle. So what you do is you click on here, you can select bundle. Now, right off the bat, you can have some pre-assembled bundles, okay? But let's say that we're not going to do that. Let's say that we're actually just going to create a bundle right here, okay? And I'm going to call this the Mondo bundle, okay? And inside here, I'm going to click on here to add products. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add products to it. I'm going to create the bundle inside of it. And I'm just going to say custom tables. Come on. Add custom tables. And I'm going to add one more product. Actually, I'm going to put in just orange care. Okay. Okay. So why is that useful? Well, actually, I better put in the APC as well. Otherwise, that won't be much point. Put in APC. Okay, so I'm just going to move this up here. So I've got APC, I've got custom tables, and I've got Orange Care. Okay, and you can see here that they've all tallied up to create a $600 item. But what I'm going to do is at the product level, I'm going to say make quantity editable. Okay, here's my quantity. You can see it's showing, it's hiding the individual price. But if I change here, it goes up by denominations of 600 bucks. Okay, because it is multiplying the value of all of these things together. Okay, so if you've got custom tables and enhanced support that have got to match the quantity of this at the top, bundles are the best way of doing it. Okay, now if you want, let's say designer here, okay, I want to add this in as an option. And again, this is something that you want to make sure put in here. This mark this item as optional. Watch what happens. Some of my salespeople used to call this the Christmas tree quoting, okay? Because you can add in a bunch of options and let the customer deselect them. So I say, oh, that's great, not yet, okay? They deselect it, it removes it from the extended price, and it removes it from the total price at the bottom. Why is this good? Because you can actually build in a lot of options in an initial quote, and you can either select them or deselect them, depending on whether you quote down or up, whatever your style is, and I'm not here to lecture on that. Whatever you do, people can then engage the quote, okay, with all the options, with the quantities, and really customize it for their own needs. And when you add in things like bundles, then you're having a bit more quality control where they can't build invalid quotes where, say, the custom tables in the Orange Care don't match the APC. Okay. Let's see. We've covered that. Actually, we're at 203. That pretty much where I wanted to cover, how to use the quotes, how to import in the products, okay, how to get something ready to go right away. The only thing I'm going to quickly add to this is, let me just close all this, is the opportunity tab basically shows you the information that reflects the linked opportunity. Now, initially, it's the opportunity that's created, and then the linked opportunity after that. Okay, so here's obviously it's been open 0 days. Now, here is the process. Here's the stage. As you've seen, it's brought over all of the defaults from my settings. I can indicate here who he was referred by. Okay, and then when it's closed, I can even set the reason here. All of these are fairly straightforward. Now, if for any reason you feel that some of the details in here are not being synced up with ACT, let me show you a trick. Because you're going to occasionally get a deal with a customer that says, hey, I've made some changes here. I've adjusted the probability percentage, or I've adjusted this or that, and it's not reflecting in ACT. Watch what you do. You select all these, click on Batch Edit. Don't select any of these and just click on Save and Close. And then it automatically will force a sync between the quote details and the opportunity details. So let's say, Shannon comes to me and says, it says in here that I'm the record manager of a quote, but I'm not seeing that updated in ACT. That's all you got to do. Okay, and then it syncs it up. Now, just to get back into my quote, the only other thing I wanted to show you here, activity is going to show you everything that's gone on with this quote. When you sent it, when you created it, the automatic scheduled follow-up, when they viewed it, when they accepted it, so on and so forth, including things like when it was approved for release and so on and so forth. But the log is something that confuses people, but it's really useful if there is a use case for it with you or your customer. So let's say I'm dealing with Mark. He's a prospect, and I'm going to make a little note here, and I'm going to say, be sure to speak quickly. Better faster than I type anyway, because he dozes off. Okay, so now what I can do is I can click on submit entry. Now, why is this useful? Well, these are case notes that are being written to the notes section of the corresponding opportunity, and it's telling you little things about that deal, okay, that you really don't otherwise have a section for. That little ephemera, the information that is really only relevant to the deal. Now, what my support manager would tell you, or my hosting manager will tell you, is here is an excellent section to put in provisioning details. So let's say, what is their domain going to be? What's the size of their database? Whatever. You can put in all of these notes, and that way when the deal closes, the support team can just look at the opportunity notes for any provisioning details. Okay? And that's how we use it. Okay, gonna be super quick. I'm sorry I've run over, but just I'll open it up quickly for any Q&A. You guys are gonna give me a break, or did I inadvertently mute everyone? No, I didn't. Gary spoke. Okay, so guys, I hope this was useful to you. I think, at least I hope, you can see how powerful of a sales tool is, not only for you to use as a vendor, for you to use as a consultant, but also for you to use as a soft sell tool, right? I've had people say, hey, cool quote, tell me a little bit about it, okay? Suddenly I've got a quote opportunity that a selling opportunity that didn't previously exist. But if you're quoting something that they're going to see and it's included free with Act Premium Cloud, what a great soft sell, okay? And if it enables you to do quotes faster, to bring on new sales reps faster, to allow less waste of time because the customer can engage with the quote far more extensively without you, okay, then you're basically providing them the ability to completely customize their own quote and accept it under those terms without, back and forth and back and forth. Trust me, them asking you change the quantity, deselect this item, this is not increasing your sales opportunities, just creating speed bumps. If they can do everything themselves, the shorter the distance between, when you quote it and when they buy. That all makes sense? Groovy. Okay, guys, thank you. It is a Friday. I don't want to take you much longer. I'm already 10 minutes after, so I want you guys to be able to attend future meetings. So I hope you enjoyed this. Look for Monday. I should be able to send around the recording on this. I noticed someone said that they weren't getting the emails. That might be because it's being distributed under the primary ACC. Dinah, I think you mentioned that that you didn't get it. I will afterwards try to remember to add you to the group as well. If anyone else is under those same terms, please let me know. But otherwise, thank you for joining us and have a great weekend. Take care.
Thanks a lot, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Very powerful. Very nice.
Thanks a lot.